Oh my gosh, Donkey Kong Bonanza goes even deeper than we thought. Hello everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we are talking even more about Donkey Kong Bonanza. So just a few days ago, I put out a video talking about how I am now thoroughly convinced that Donkey Kong's longtime rival, King K. Rool, will be making his grand return. More and more evidence keeps presenting itself. But I've already been theorizing about King K. Rool making to the game, as have many others, since day one, since we got this game announced on April 2nd. It's just as we've seen and learned more and more, it's become more and more obvious, at least to a lot of us who are theorizing on it. And to me, I think we're already at the point where this is basically confirmed, but more evidence has, yes, presented itself, but it goes beyond just the King K. Rool situation. We're just learning even more about Donkey Kong from different observations from the treehouse footage and the trailer that are really saying a lot more about this game and just how deep it goes with not just Donkey Kong lore, perhaps even the game itself and how it will play later on. But it's not just observations of the trailer and the treehouse footage, but also we have gotten a website update apparently this week, and it seems to be giving us just a little bit more perspective on what may be going on here. And so when you consider all of this, and also the leak from Nintendo of Korea, there's really a lot of things about this game that are shrouded in mystery, and there seems to be a lot more depth than a lot of people want to give this game credit for, and that's very exciting, so that's what we're diving even further into today. But before going forward, let me point out that I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches on June 5th, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription would be appreciated. So going to Nintendo's website, beforehand, when you would go to this page about the different Nintendo Switch 2 games, you would see these different things for Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, and when you would click on them, they would take you to their dedicated websites, right? However, now, because pre-orders are now up and here in North America, there's a pre-order button for each of these games. And so when you click on Donkey Kong, so you go to the pre-order page, and it looks like we have some new screenshots, at least some that I haven't seen before. And so when we take a look here, some of them look pretty similar to things we've seen before. However, like this one right here, looks pretty good. We can see Donkey Kong up close in this forest area. Now we've seen this area before in the trailers. This is the area where there's all these different egg-shaped houses with the ostriches, including Espresso, it looks like. If you pay attention here, this like stone-like structure is likely the long neck for one of the ostrich statues. And I just want to point out just how great this game looks up close with all the different foliage and such, and this enemy charging up to Donkey Kong. It looks nice. But here, we see something very cool. Now, we've seen this giant Kong before sitting on a throne in this area, the lagoon area, but never this close. And so we can get a really good understanding of the scale here. Look at Donkey Kong, who's already a fairly sizable character, standing in between two of this Kong's knuckles here. And so he's huge. Now notice all of his jewelry, his crown, it's all different like rotten bananas. There's clearly a depiction of a character who may have an understanding of perhaps an ancient history. He almost looks somewhat like, maybe like a Mayan or Aztec king from long ago. And I'll also point out that we do see all these different cargo containers that have rust on them. So clearly there is a motif of having aged and being old. And it's very interesting, and also just seeing this Kong up close with how giant he is and all the detail, it looks very cool. I'll point out here we have this really nice screenshot of Donkey Kong in the minecart. And I actually think this is a very important frame, now at least with what we've learned recently. And that's because we see all of this smoke coming out from these different factories here, all this color. We see the light almost has like a pinkish blue sort of like spectrum there. You even see it here as well. It's almost like that's the energy of this. And I think that's actually something very important, which we'll speak on a little bit later on into the video. Now here we see the Voidco baddies again. Is there something going on with them? I think so. However, I can't make much just from this screenshot here. However, there is also a summary here. And there are a couple parts that I find very interesting. Most of it's just basically what you would expect, but here they say, delve deep underground and discover that this subterranean world is a lot more than it seems on the surface. Uncover forest, canyon, mine, lagoon, and even frozen environments as you peel back the world's layers. So we already understand that there's going to be forests, canyons, mines, lagoons, and frozen environments because we've seen all of this in the trailer. However, where they say, discover that this subterranean world is a lot more than it seems, that part I find interesting, it being a lot more than it seems. What do they mean by that? Are they suggesting more than, hey, there's other layers, there's other levels? I think so. Now, they also talk about here, recover the stolen bananas from the greedy Void Company. Just when the whole island is celebrating the discovery of a huge treasure trove of golden bananas, Void Co. swoops in to swipe them. It's up to Donkey Kong to get those old bananas back, as usual. Now, this part is interesting to me because Donkey Kong is a part of this celebration. He goes to the mine, we see that first level in the treehouse footage, and we see him exploring there, and we see Void Co. in the act of stealing the bananas. And I think this is important in terms of understanding the timeline of events here as we delve deeper into what's going on. Which brings me back to the Cranky Kong conversation. So for those that missed the conversation about Cranky Kong, I'll show you a few things here. So here's a screenshot where Cranky Kong says, "When I heard there was a banana bandit on the loose, I knew who to blame. I just had to suss out where he ran to hide." Or here, "What a rotten crook. How does a fool like that command any respect?" He's speaking about a specific person or character, a rotten crook, which is an interesting choice of words, I would say. Yes, this is about King K. Rool. Let's also consider the croctoids we've seen in this game, which are these crocodile-like creatures encased in rocks with crocodile heads and have Kremlin-shaped golden skeletons. Also, there's always been the conversation about King K. Rool being a poor leader because he treats the Kremlins very poorly, so how does he command respect? And then also here, Cranky Kong says, "In my day, rivals had charisma, even in overalls." So here he's talking about two different rivals. Cranky Kong's rival from the original Donkey Kong of 1981, which is Jumpman, Mario. And also we have Donkey Kong's rival, King K. Rool. And so this conversation with Cranky Kong, to me, already pretty much basically confirmed he's in the game when you consider all the context. But some may really try and argue he's just talking about one of the male Void Co members, and that's why he's saying he, and that's why he chased them down on Rambi here. But that's why the summary of the website I think is important, because it talks about how they are celebrating these found golden bananas, and Donkey Kong's a part of that celebration in the mine, and then we see that cutscene where everything's sucked up. Something happens before this point, when Donkey Kong is gone, or while Donkey Kong is gone. Which brings me to some observations presented by Kremlin Detective on Twitter. Their Twitter will be linked in the description below. So here they actually show more screenshots of different conversations you can have with Cranky Kong. So it looks like if you talk to Cranky Kong more than once, you will have a different series of dialogue. So here he says, "It took some effort, but I worked out that crook's hiding spot. That's right, got his whole plan figured out." He's talking about one person here, one crook, which lines up with King K. Rool. But also, here he says, "Who am I talking about, you ask? Oh, no one. Just the fiend behind all these banana burglaries. No horde is safe. Who has a history of stealing bananas? King K. Rool." But perhaps this part makes it most clear. "I would have sent some muscle to stop him, but you had taken off for your little mining misadventure." So this here implies that while Donkey Kong is away from the Kong's banana horde, while Donkey Kong's off to the mine, where we see Void Co. stealing all those golden bananas, there is another burglary that happens elsewhere that Cranky Kong has to take care of, which tells us that it's not Void Co. that's responsible for Cranky Kong following someone else down here. This crook who has a history of stealing bananas, who is Donkey Kong's rival, who is not a great leader. That is King K. Rool. That part has been made super clear. So while this game clearly has a lot of different references to different things in Donkey Kong history, such as the minecarts, the ostriches, Rambi, Cranky Kong, different Kong, King K. Rool, the Kremlins, through the croctoids and all that stuff. Like, yes, there's clearly a lot of references and attention to detail here. Even the "oh banana" moments when you collect a banana, like from DK64. This acknowledgement of Donkey Kong history goes deeper. It pertains to the gameplay as well. So firstly, a few days ago we talked about how it's been observed that when we see Ingot Isle being pressed down into the ground, there's like a lake there, and this area seems to be very similar to Crocodile Core. And when we take a look at Crocodile Core, it's a volcano that has like this colorful energy coming from it. The colors look a lot like what we've seen on the minecart, and also kind of like the smoke coming out. It's actually also in the key art. If you look at the black lines that are coming out, you can see a little bit of that blue and pink on the sides of these different big black streaks, but also on the logo on the bottom sides as well, the corners. And actually, I had seen people talking about this. I didn't really take it too seriously at first, but also it is on the barrels as well. And just kind of like everywhere once you start to really look for it. And so as we delve deeper and deeper, and we see these different levels, and we see that there's like some sort of resource that's being used that causes some sort of colorful smoke very similar to what we see from Crocodile Core, which houses King K. Rool and the Kremlins, there could be something going on there. But another observation made by Kremling Detective is that the maps we collect when we find these fossils in the world of Bananza seem to be related to prior Donkey Kong Country levels, such as this one right here, where we can see the northern Kremisphere actually there on the map. Like, here's a northern Kremisphere, and here it is in Bananza, and at first I wasn't sure on this. It didn't look too obvious to me, because I was getting confused with the light and dark areas, but look at what I'm pointing out here. We see a house at the edge, right? There's like an opening here, an opening here, a little window. And we look over here, there's an opening here, a little window, and a bigger opening here, just like here. And there's even like a pathway, right? Goes like this, and there's one path that juts out there. There we go, we see that there too. And there is a little cave here, there is a little cave here. There are trees lining through this coast, and yep, they're there too. This entire area is exactly the same when you really look at it. And if you look over here, there actually is an island. You can see it outlined here. Even though the fossil is covering it up, there's an island here on the water. And then here to the right, there's some sort of tall volcano-like structure with an opening down here at the bottom, just like how it is over here. And if you look over here to the right, you can see another building. There's a building over here. There's like a little shore over here, like a beach, I mean. And then here there's a beach as well. There's trees. Like, this is it. Like, this map is from the Northern Kremisphere, and I say that with no doubt at all. We can even see the path here lines up with the path here. This is it. Like, look, there's a waterfall there. There's a waterfall here. The more I look, the more it's like, hey, this is literally the same place being depicted on this random map that's zoomed in that you can collect throughout the game. Does this mean anything? Well, I would have just guessed it's just a reference. But considering everything else we're seeing with this game, considering that it's a collectible, it might not be. As the website mentions, as we delve deeper and deeper into this subterranean world, there are secrets to uncover here. There's more to this than it seems. And what makes these fossils even more interesting is because we've actually seen a fossilized Naughty from the trailer. So when you defeat an enemy, you collect this Naughty fossil as a collectible. Now, Naughty was a enemy from prior Donkey Kong games. And this is all very fascinating when we also think about what has happened to the Kremlings. Because they are, well, we assume they are, encased in these croctoid rock heads, and inside them are the Kremling golden skeletons. So it's almost like the Kremlings have gone extinct but have been resurrected in some way, and so we're fighting like the fossilized versions of them. We are seeing fossilized Donkey Kong enemies. There's a depiction of an ancient history here. What has happened? Why do we see these fossils pertaining to maps from prior Donkey Kong worlds? I think that's a big part to the mystery we are going to uncover as we progress throughout this game. But there's another wrinkle here I want to touch on. There was this leak from Nintendo of Korea of a piece of art that shows Donkey Kong with a different companion character, not this purple character, Oddrock. It looks like a younger Pauline. Now, my theory is that Oddrock and this younger Pauline are the same person, and Pauline has simply been transformed into Oddrock. That could be, but then we gotta ask ourselves, regardless of whether Oddrock and Pauline are the same characters, why do we see a younger Pauline? Is it actually Pauline? Could it just be someone who looks similar? Maybe it's like her cousin or a niece or a daughter or granddaughter or something like that. That is possible. But I think what's perhaps most interesting about pointing out this weird connection here is that we're not sure on the timeline of things here. That's always been a big question mark with the Donkey Kong series in relation to the Mario series, and we know Cranky Kong had a rivalry with Jumpman from the original Donkey Kong, but there have been times where Cranky Kong's depicted as Donkey Kong's grandfather, not father. However, there are also times, like in the movie and in DK64, where Cranky Kong is depicted as DK's father. But then also, whatever happened to Donkey Kong Jr.? We are not totally sure. However, there is this recent screenshot here where we see the different Mario characters in front of the original Mario Kart sprites, and we see DK in front of DK Jr., which might be a subtle confirmation that they are indeed the same character, and DK Jr. simply matured into Donkey Kong, the one that we know today. And so I just find myself totally ecstatic to see how much level of detail Bananza seems to have with the lore, how it might pertain to the gameplay, the secrets of this story. It's very, very interesting. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.